the news through Facebook just like everyone else. The woman who sang Secret Love had secrets of her own, a manager who kept her family away, a $22 million betrayal, and a hidden life behind high walls in Carmel. Now, Ryan breaks his silence about the grandmother America loved but never really knew. Doris Day was born as Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, in Cincinnati, Ohio. She grew up in a working-class neighborhood with her parents, William, a music teacher, and Alma, a homemaker. Doris had two older brothers, but one, Richard, sadly died before she was born. This loss shaped her strong and determined personality. When she was still a child, her parents divorced, which was unusual and shocking at the time. Doris was raised mostly by her mother, and they faced many challenges during the Great Depression. But even as a young girl, Doris stood out for her spirited nature. At just 12 years old, she won a contest by standing on her hands for over 3 hours, earning free dance lessons. This showed the determination that would define her entire life. Doris loved dancing and dreamed of becoming a professional dancer. But when she was 14, her life took a heartbreaking turn. Just before a trip to Hollywood that could have changed her life, she was in a terrible car accident. A train hit the car she was in, and her leg was shattered. It was so bad that the doctors thought they might have to amputate. For over a year, Doris couldn't walk and had to go through many painful surgeries. During this time, she turned to singing to help her cope. She listened to the radio and sang along to her favorite artist, Ella Fitzgerald. Her mother noticed her talent and found her a singing teacher named Grace Rain. Grace said Doris was the most talented student she had ever taught. At just 15, Doris started singing professionally. Her first job was at a small Chinese restaurant, where she earned $5 a night. It wasn't much, but it was a start. One night, while singing at a local nightclub, she caught the attention of a bandleader named Barney Rapp. He had been looking for a female singer for a long time, and when he heard Doris, he knew she was the one. But there was a problem: Doris was too young to work in places that served alcohol. To solve this, she lied about her age and said she was 18. She worried people would find out, but she didn't want to miss the chance to perform. In 1939, when Doris was 17, she changed her name. Barney Rapp thought her last name, Kappelhoff, was too hard to say and too long for a stage name. After hearing Doris sing the song day after day, he suggested the name Doris Day. At first, Doris didn't like it. She thought it sounded too flashy. But eventually, she got used to it, and the name stuck. Little did she know, Doris Day would become one of the most famous names in Hollywood. Doris Day's life changed forever when she joined Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940, at just 18 years old. But it almost didn't happen. Doris was so scared before her audition that she couldn't stop shaking and even got sick backstage. Les Brown himself had to encourage her, reminding her of the talent he'd heard on the radio. With his support, she went on stage and sang Embraceable You. The band was stunned, and Doris got the job. Her time with the band wasn't easy, though. On Valentine's Day in 1941, while traveling with the group, Doris found out that her brother Paul had died in a car accident. Even though she was heartbroken, she chose to perform that night. Her emotional singing brought the audience to tears. This ability to pour her feelings into her music would make her stand out for the rest of her career. The biggest moment with Les Brown's band came in 1945 when they recorded Sentimental Journey. Les didn't even like the song at first and called it too old-fashioned. But Doris believed in it so much that she told him she'd quit if they didn't record it. Finally, he gave in, and the song became a huge success. It sold over 1 million copies in its first year and became the theme song for soldiers returning home from World War II. Fun fact, Doris was sick with a cold when she recorded it, which gave her voice a husky, emotional sound that became her signature. In 1947, Doris decided to try a solo career. It wasn't easy at first. When she signed with Columbia Records on September 1st, there was a lot of pressure on her. She was one of the first female artists to get a big contract like that, a 7-year deal worth $1 million. But even with this big opportunity, things didn't start smoothly. At her first recording session, she found the songs picked for her were boring and outdated. Doris refused to sing them. After arguing with the studio, she was finally allowed to choose her own songs. That decision led to her recording It's Magic, which became a massive hit. It sold over 2 million copies and even got her an Oscar nomination. Doris recorded The Magic of Secret Love in just one take, leaving everyone in the studio amazed. The song became so popular that Columbia Records couldn't keep up with the demand. They had to stop producing other records just to make more copies of Doris's hit. When the song was released, it became a massive hit. Secret Love stayed at number 1 on the Billboard charts for 19 weeks and sold over 4 million copies worldwide. It even won an Oscar for Best Original Song, making Doris the first person to act in a movie and sing an Oscar-winning song. Despite its success, Doris was nervous about performing it live. She refused to sing it at the Oscars due to stage fright, which upset people in Hollywood, leading some to unfairly label her as difficult to work with. Years later, Secret Love found new meaning. Its lyrics about hidden love resonated with the LGBTQ+ community during the 1960s and 1970s, becoming an anthem for their struggles. When Doris learned about this later, she was deeply moved and openly supported the community, a significant stance for a star from her era. Doris Day's Hollywood story began with a twist of fate. One night at a party, two famous songwriters, Jewel Stein and Sammy Cahn, heard her sing and were so impressed that they suggested she try acting. The timing was perfect. Betty Hutton, the lead in Romance on the High Seas, 1948, had dropped out due to pregnancy. Doris, at 25, had never acted before and was nervous, but she decided to give it a try. Director Michael Curtiz was blown away, calling her the most everything girl he had ever seen, and gave her the part. Despite being new to acting, Doris looked so natural on screen that people assumed she had been doing it for years. Her performance made her a star, and the film's success earned her a long-term contract with Warner Brothers, launching her incredible Hollywood career. In the 1950s, Doris became one of the biggest stars in musicals. One of her most famous films was Calamity Jane, 1953, in which she played a wild and adventurous frontierswoman, a big change from her usual sweet and innocent roles. She gave her all to the role, even performing dangerous stunts herself, like jumping onto a moving stagecoach. She was injured and broke a rib, but her hard work paid off. The movie earned over $3.7 million and remains beloved today. Another major success came with The Pajama Game, 1957, a fun musical about workers in a pajama factory. The film was based on a Broadway show, and most of the original cast remained, except for Doris. Her song Hey There became a chart topper, and her lively performance made the movie a hit. It earned $5 million at the box office, proving that Doris was one of the most popular stars of the time. Doris Day's career took a major turn in 1955 with Love Me or Leave Me. Until then, she was primarily known for cheerful musicals, but this movie was different. She played Ruth Etting, a singer dealing with an abusive manager and a life of crime. The story was serious and emotional, revealing a new depth to Doris's talent. Her acting was so powerful that Ruth Etting herself said, "I never knew I was that good." The film earned over $4 million and received critical acclaim. Some, including her co-star James Cagney, believed she should have been nominated for an Oscar. However, making the movie wasn't easy. Some scenes about the abuse had to be toned down due to censorship rules of the time. Still, the film proved that Doris could take on tough, dramatic roles, not just musicals. Following this, Doris Day became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. From the late 1950s to the early 1960s, she was the undisputed queen of the box office. Between 1960 and 1964, she was the most popular movie star in America, a record only Shirley Temple had achieved before her. One of her biggest hits was Pillow Talk, 1959, her first film with Rock Hudson. The movie had a production cost of $3 million but earned over $18 million, solidifying her status as a Hollywood icon. Doris Day's chemistry with Rock Hudson was amazing, and they made 2 more movies together, Love or Come Back in 1961 and Send Me No Flowers in 1964. All 3 were huge hits, and Pillow Talk even earned Day her only Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Doris Day's movies made a lot of money, over $200 million by 1965. She became known as the most bankable actress in Hollywood and was also one of the highest-paid stars, earning $750,000 per film and receiving a share of the profits. People loved her not just for her movies but also for her style and songs. She was a true American icon. However, being America's sweetheart wasn't always easy. She later admitted that it was difficult to constantly live up to that perfect image. Even so, her influence on movies, music, and culture was immense. Doris Day's life took many surprising turns, both on and off screen. She starred in her own sitcom, The Doris Day Show, from 1968 to 1973. Initially, it was a family comedy set on a California ranch, but every season, the setting and characters changed. It was as if the show reinvented itself each year. Fans didn't know what to expect, and this constant evolution made it unique. These changes also reflected the rapidly shifting culture of the late 1960s and early 1970s. After the show ended, Doris decided to leave acting and focus on something she truly loved, helping animals. Her passion for animals began in childhood after her dog, Tiny, died in a tragic accident. That loss stayed with her and inspired her lifelong dedication to animal welfare. Even during her career, Doris showed her love for animals. While filming The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco, she was horrified by the poor treatment of animals on set. She refused to continue working until the animals were cared for, leading to the creation of a feeding station for local animals. In 1978, Doris founded the Doris Day Pet Foundation, which later became the Doris Day Animal Foundation. Initially, it focused on rescuing animals locally, and Doris even took care of many in her own home. Over time, the foundation expanded to address larger issues, such as stopping animal overpopulation. In 1995, she created World Spay Day to encourage people to spay and neuter their pets. The event spread to over 70 countries, helping millions of animals. Doris also worked to change laws to protect animals, using her fame to make a difference. Although Doris had left Hollywood, she surprised everyone in 2011 with a new album, My Heart. At 89 years old, she released songs recorded in the 1980s, many written by her late son, Terry Melcher. The album was deeply personal and full of emotion. One song, Happy Endings, even featured Terry's voice alongside hers. Fans loved the album, and it became a hit, reaching number 9 on the UK albums chart, making Doris the oldest artist to have a top 10 album with new material. In the US, it marked her first appearance on the Billboard charts in nearly 50 years. The violence didn't stop there. Jordan was controlling and jealous, constantly accusing Doris of being unfaithful. He called her terrible names and even slapped her in public when he saw her picture on a magazine cover. Things worsened when Doris became pregnant. Jordan tried to force her to have an illegal abortion, and when she refused, he beat her so badly that she nearly lost the baby. The worst moment came when she was 8 months pregnant. Jordan hid a gun in his car and drove Doris to a secluded area, planning to kill her and their unborn child before taking his own life. With quick thinking, Doris managed to calm him down and avoid tragedy, but the terror stayed with her forever. From that day on, she couldn't sit in the front seat of a car without feeling afraid. After her son, Terry, was born in February 1942, Doris tried to hold the marriage together, hoping Jordan would change. But when he started hurting their baby, she knew she had to leave. It wasn't easy, but she found the courage to walk away and file for divorce. Sadly, this wasn't the last time she found herself in a relationship with an unstable man. Her second marriage, to saxophonist George Weidler, seemed like a fresh start. They met while performing in the same band, and their connection was instant. Doris, now a young single mom, fell for his charm, and the two quickly married in 1946. After tying the knot, they moved to Hollywood, believing it would offer them better opportunities. At first, things seemed promising, but cracks started to show. Weidler wasn't ready to be. Doris Day's stepfather didn't hide his reluctance when she suggested that her mother and son move in with them. He also struggled with Doris's growing success. As her singing career began to take off, he became insecure and distant. Then, just 8 months after their wedding, he delivered a crushing blow. He wanted a divorce. His reason? He didn't want to be overshadowed by her rising fame or known as Mr. Doris Day. Doris was devastated. She had hoped this marriage would bring stability and happiness, but it ended almost as quickly as it began. After the divorce was finalized in 1949, she returned home to Cincinnati with her son, looking for comfort and time to heal. When she married Martin Melcher in 1951, she thought she had found happiness. Instead, he became her manager and secretly ruined her for 17 years. Melcher and his business partner, Jerome Rosenthal, stole her money and wasted it on bad deals. Doris trusted Melcher completely and never questioned what he was doing. When Melcher suddenly died in 1968, Doris discovered the terrible truth: her entire fortune, worth what would be $150 million today, was gone. On top of that, she was $500,000 in debt. But that wasn't all. Melcher had secretly signed her up for a CBS television show without asking her. Doris, who had been one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars, was now broke and forced into TV work she didn't want. She sued Rosenthal to get back what was hers, and in 1974, she won a $22 million settlement. But in the end, she received only a small part of it after making deals with insurance companies. Her son later said she got far less than people thought. This betrayal was devastating. Doris had trusted Melcher completely, and he had lied to her for almost 2 decades. It broke her heart and made her step away from the spotlight. One of the hardest parts of Melcher's betrayal was the TV show he had signed her up for. Doris had planned to retire after her last movie in 1968, but now she had no choice. She had to do the Doris Day show to pay off the debt Melcher left behind. She only found out about the show a few weeks before filming started and was horrified. Even worse, the $500,000 advance from CBS was already spent. As Terry grew older, he started making a name for himself in music. By the 1960s, he was working as a producer at Columbia Records, helping create huge hits like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn for the Birds. He also worked with Paul Revere and the Raiders, helping them produce several hit songs. Terry's talent didn't stop there. He later worked with the Beach Boys and even produced their hit song Kokomo in 1988, which became their first #1 song in 22 years. But Terry's life wasn't just about music. In 1968, something terrifying happened. Terry was living in a house in Los Angeles with his girlfriend, Candace Bergen. This house on Cielo Drive later became the site of the infamous Sharon Tate murders by Charles Manson's cult. Terry had met Manson through a mutual friend, Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. Manson wanted Terry to help him get a record deal, but Terry decided not to. This rejection made Manson angry. A few months later, Terry moved out of the house. Not long after, Manson's followers killed Sharon Tate and her friends there. Some people believe Terry might have been the target, but no one knows for sure. Ryan Melcher, Doris Day's only grandson, shared a heartbreaking story just one day after her death on May 13, 2019. He revealed on Facebook that he had been estranged from his grandmother for 14 years. Even worse, he found out about her passing not from family but through social media, like millions of her fans. It was a sad and shocking revelation, showing how deeply their family ties had been broken. The trouble began in 2004 after Ryan's father, Terry Melcher, passed away. Terry, Doris Day's only child, had died from melanoma at the age of 62. Not long after, Doris reached out to Ryan and invited him to dinner. It seemed like a chance to reconnect, especially since their relationship had been distant after Ryan's parents divorced. In 1997, things didn't go as planned. Before the dinner could happen, Doris's new business manager, Bob Bashara, stepped in. He called Ryan to a meeting at the Cypress Inn, a hotel Doris co-owned in Carmel, California. Ryan says Bashara asked him, "Why do you want to see Doris?" Ryan was stunned and replied, "She's my grandmother." The story took another turn when Doris's publicist, Charlie Cullen Walters, responded to Melcher's claims. Walters, who worked with Doris since 2011, said they tried many times to reconnect with Ryan. One of these attempts was for Doris's 90th birthday in 2014, which could have been a perfect moment for the family to come together. But according to Walters, Ryan didn't respond. Walters explained that this estrangement might not have been all on Doris's side. He pointed out something interesting. Ryan's own website once had a message asking people not to contact him about celebrity or Hollywood matters. This made the situation even more complicated. On one hand, Ryan seemed to avoid the fame tied to his grandmother. On the other hand, he later talked about how he missed being connected to her. Walters's version of events suggests the story was more about misunderstandings than anyone intentionally pushing the other away. In her later years, Doris chose to step away from the public eye completely. After her third husband, Martin Melcher, passed away in 1968, she became very private. By the 1990s, Doris was hardly seen in public. She lived on an 11-acre ranch in Carmel, California, with her animals, which became her biggest passion. She reportedly cared for as many as 30 dogs at one time, each with its own room. Her life revolved around them, and her ranch was her peaceful retreat. Doris rarely left her home and turned down many honors, like the Kennedy Center Awards, because she didn't like public events or traveling. Her last public appearance was in 1989 at the Golden Globes, and her final TV interview was in 1994. People in Carmel knew her as the friendly woman who cared for stray animals and lived a simple, quiet life. She even served meals on paper plates and had a washing machine in her bedroom. She created a separate kitchen just for her pets. Her love for them was that deep. After her son, Terry Melcher, died in 2004, Doris became even more secluded. Her business manager, Bob Bashara, started handling most of her affairs. This caused tension with Ryan, who felt cut off from his grandmother. It added another layer to the story of Doris's later life, where privacy and family struggles collided.